The palace gates have never seemed so ominous. The security guards, usually a distant presence, now feel like silent sentinels watching the tension unfold inside. And just 1 minute ago, the world got a jolt that no one expected. The royal family issued a statement so shocking it could rewrite the story of modern monarchy. It concerned Prince Harry. His plea to return to the United Kingdom and take on the role of a part-time royal had been rejected, and the ramifications were immediate, profound, and deeply personal. But what does this mean for Harry, for Meghan, and for the monarchy itself? And why now, of all times, has the royal family chosen to make this announcement public? But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine the scene. Harry, a man who once walked the halls of Windsor with an ease born of birthright, now standing at the precipice of a decision that could alter his life forever. The man who has captivated the world with both scandal and heartwarming gestures, who left the royal institution in search of freedom and self-definition, is now confronted with the cold mechanics of protocol and power. He wanted to return, to reclaim a connection, to bridge the chasm that has grown between him and the life he was born into. Yet the response from the royal family was resolute. No compromise, no halfway measures. The doors he hoped to step through remain firmly closed. And this isn't just a minor setback. For Harry, it is deeply personal. For the royal family, it is a statement about boundaries, tradition, and control. And for the public, it is yet another headline in a saga that seems to grow more dramatic with each passing day. But why now? Why make this public? The timing is curious, the decision controversial, and the implications far-reaching. This is a story that is not just about a man or a family, but about the delicate dance between duty, freedom, and the expectations of a global audience. Consider Harry's position. A prince, yes, but also a husband and father who has chosen a path outside the traditional confines of royalty. He has built a life in America, far from the pressures and scrutiny of the palace, yet the pull of home, of family, of tradition remains strong. And he was ready to compromise, to propose a solution that would allow him to return to the UK on his own terms. Part-time royal duties, ceremonial appearances, family events. Just enough to reconnect, to participate without surrendering the autonomy he fought so hard to secure. On paper, it might have seemed reasonable, practical even, but the palace saw it differently. They saw a threat to precedent, a challenge to centuries of tradition, and perhaps a risk to the carefully curated image of the monarchy. And in the corridors of power, intentions often matter less than optics. What makes this moment even more remarkable is the contrast between expectation and reality. The public has been trained, over generations of royal coverage, to expect certain patterns, disputes kept private, reconciliations whispered in the background, major decisions cloaked in silence until a carefully staged announcement. But this is different. This announcement was immediate, unambiguous, and direct. It speaks to a shifting approach, a modern monarchy grappling with the tension between transparency and discretion, tradition and adaptation. The world is watching, reacting, and speculating at a speed that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. Every word, every nuance, every facial expression is dissected, analyzed, and turned into headlines that ripple across continents. For Harry, the rejection is more than procedural. It is a statement. It signals that the compromises he hoped for, the blending of his independent life with his royal heritage, are not on the table. And it forces a reckoning. How does one reconcile identity with institution when the two seem irreparably at odds? How does a man balance love, loyalty, ambition, and autonomy when every choice is magnified through a lens of global scrutiny? And what of Meghan, whose own journey with the monarchy has been fraught with both triumph and conflict? Her perspective is crucial, yet largely hidden from the public eye. How does a family navigate these layered, overlapping tensions, each decision carrying emotional weight that can be felt across oceans? The emotional stakes are high. Harry has already made sacrifices, stepping away from titles, privileges, and roles that defined him from birth. He has faced public scrutiny, media attacks, and personal betrayals. Yet he sought reconciliation, a bridge back to the institution that shaped his early life. The denial of his plea is not just bureaucratic, it is profoundly human. It underscores the complexity of familial love entangled with institutional duty. And it raises questions that resonate far beyond royal circles. How do we balance personal desires with societal expectations? How do we negotiate the spaces between identity, loyalty, and self-fulfillment? Now, let's pause and consider the broader implications. This is not merely a story about one prince. It is a narrative about the evolution of monarchy, the pressures of modern media, and the intersection of personal agency with historical legacy. The decision to reject Harry's part-time return may be rooted in protocol, yet its reverberations touch every corner of the royal institution. It challenges assumptions about who has authority, who sets the rules, and who ultimately decides the shape of the monarchy in a rapidly changing world. And it presents a tableau that is both intimate and global, a single decision impacting hearts, institutions, and millions of observers worldwide. For the audience, the story is compelling because it combines elements of drama, intrigue, and human emotion. There is the tension of family conflict, the allure of hidden motivations, and the universal appeal of someone trying to reclaim a place in a world that seems just out of reach. We are drawn in by Harry's personal journey, yet captivated by the broader dynamics of the institution that shapes him. We want to know, what exactly did he request? How was it received behind palace doors? And most importantly, what happens next, knowing that every move will be scrutinized, dissected, and remembered? And here lies the first twist, the initial cliffhanger of our narrative. While the royal family's public announcement closed one door, it may have opened another, one fraught with uncertainty, strategy, and potential upheaval. The rejection is clear, yes, but the response is not. How will Harry navigate this new reality? Will he push back, compromise, or carve out a new path entirely? And what unseen forces within the palace may yet shift the balance, turning a moment of denial into something far more consequential? Every layer of this story is interconnected, each revelation building toward the next, each emotional spike teasing the reader, the viewer, the global audience who cannot look away. As we prepare to dive deeper into this exposé, remember the stakes. This is not tabloid sensationalism. This is a story of identity, power, and family loyalty. It is about a man caught between worlds, a family bound by tradition, and a public captivated by both. The opening scene, the announcement, the denial, the immediate emotional fallout, is only the beginning. What follows will explore the inner workings of Buckingham Palace, the personal and public reactions, and the unfolding drama that may redefine how we understand modern royalty. By the end of this video, you will have an unprecedented look into the events that led to this moment, the personalities involved, and the potential consequences of a decision that has already sent shockwaves across continents. You will understand not only what happened, but why it happened, and what it might mean for the future of Harry, Meghan, and the royal family. But for now, hold that question in your mind. If 1 minute ago the gates closed, what happens in the next? What comes after rejection, when the eyes of the world are watching? And who, if anyone, will step forward to change the course of a story that is far from over? Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. No one saw it coming. 1 minute, the world was scrolling through familiar headlines, digesting the usual royal updates, and the next, a statement dropped from Buckingham Palace that sent shockwaves across the globe. The announcement was short, precise, and unmistakable. Prince Harry's plea to return to the United Kingdom as a part-time royal had been rejected. Just like that, the hopes of a compromise that could have softened the chasm between him and his family were dashed. But the impact was immediate, far-reaching, and deeply personal, not just for Harry, but for the monarchy and millions who have followed his journey. Imagine the scene inside the palace when this decision was finalized. The air must have been thick with tension, every word measured, every glance scrutinized. King Charles, known for his meticulous attention to protocol and tradition, likely weighed the potential fallout from every angle. Advisors, lawyers, and aides would have prepared scenario after scenario. How would the media respond? How would the public react? How would this affect the fragile balance of family dynamics that has always been as delicate as it is powerful? The decision was not made lightly, and yet, the final statement was unyielding. For Harry, the moment of denial was not just procedural, it was deeply emotional. Consider the symbolism of what he had requested: a part-time role, a bridge between his independent life in America and the royal life he had left behind. On paper, it seemed reasonable, practical even, but for the palace, it represented uncertainty. It represented precedent. It represented a challenge to centuries of tradition that have always demanded clarity, hierarchy, and total alignment. And so, the rejection was definitive, leaving Harry in a liminal space between the life he built and the life he was born into. Public reaction was instantaneous. Social media exploded within seconds. Tweets, posts, and videos flooded platforms around the world. Headlines varied in tone, some sympathetic, others critical, many dripping with intrigue and speculation. The story was no longer just about Harry. It had become a global conversation about family, duty, identity, and the evolving role of monarchy in the modern age. Every news outlet scrambled to interpret the statement, to provide analysis, and to offer opinions that ranged from shocked to outraged. The palace had unwittingly, or perhaps deliberately, created a spectacle that would dominate the conversation for weeks, if not months. Inside the family, emotions ran high. Harry's brother, Prince William, known for his stoic demeanor and careful media strategy, would have been caught in a complex web of loyalty, protocol, and personal sentiment. King Charles, balancing his role as a father and as the monarch, faced the challenge of maintaining authority while managing the emotional fallout. And then there was Princess Anne, often overlooked but influential, whose perspective on Harry's return may have carried significant weight behind closed doors. Every member of the family, every advisor, every royal aide was now part of a story that would be dissected in living rooms, offices, and online forums worldwide. The announcement also brought into sharp focus the divide between expectation and reality. The public had, for years, grown accustomed to a certain narrative: royal disputes managed quietly, reconciliation attempted privately, and announcements carefully staged for maximum positive optics. This was different. This was immediate, unfiltered, direct, and the timing was notable. Why now? Why make this public, at this moment, in this precise manner? The answer, while partly rooted in protocol, also spoke to the broader strategy of the monarchy, its awareness of the global stage, and the pressures of modern media scrutiny. The emotional stakes for Harry cannot be overstated. He had already made significant sacrifices, stepping away from roles, titles, and privileges that had defined him from birth. He had faced intense media scrutiny, criticism, and personal betrayals. And yet he had hoped for reconciliation, not a full return, not an abandonment of independence, but a part-time role that could allow him to reconnect with family and heritage. The rejection of this plea was not merely administrative. It was a message, a declaration of boundaries, and a reminder that even royalty is subject to rules that can feel impersonal, cold, and unyielding. Yet, for the audience, the intrigue lies not just in the rejection itself, but in what comes next. How does Harry navigate a life divided between two worlds? What strategies might he employ to maintain influence, connection, and relevance, despite the denial? And perhaps most importantly, what does this reveal about the monarchy itself, its values, its priorities, and its capacity for adaptation in a rapidly changing world? These questions linger, teasing the imagination, and they will guide our exploration as we delve deeper into the unfolding drama. The announcement also exposed an interesting paradox. While the palace sought to maintain control and uphold tradition, the very act of making the statement public unleashed forces that could not be contained. Social media chatter, public debate, and media speculation have a momentum of their own. Every nuance is scrutinized, every tone analyzed, every potential implication debated. In attempting to assert authority, the monarchy had inadvertently entered a high-stakes game in which every player, Harry, Meghan, Charles, William, and the global audience, would have a voice. The statement became a catalyst, igniting discussions that transcend the palace walls, from mental health and personal autonomy to the evolving role of monarchy in contemporary society. And then there is the human dimension, the personal heartbreak, the private conversations, the unspoken emotions that cannot be captured in official statements. Harry, who has always been candid about his struggles and vulnerabilities, now faces a new challenge: how to reconcile public perception with private reality. His plea to return was not merely about convenience or ceremonial duty. It was about identity, belonging, and the desire to bridge a gap that had widened over years of distance and misunderstanding. The denial is a profound emotional blow, one that sets the stage for a story of resilience, strategy, and the complexities of navigating family loyalty under global scrutiny. For those observing from the outside, the drama is compelling because it is relatable in an amplified way. Who hasn't wanted to return to a family, to reclaim a sense of belonging, only to find doors closed? The difference here is scale. The consequences of this personal desire ripple across nations, media outlets, and social platforms. The interplay between personal agency and institutional authority becomes a central theme, one that will unfold in surprising ways as we move through this exposé. And yet, the announcement is just the beginning. While it marks a definitive moment of rejection, it also sets up the tension for what is to come. What will Harry do next? How will Meghan respond? How will the royal family navigate the fallout, both internally and externally? Every answer will lead to further questions. Every reaction will spark new speculation, and every move will be analyzed under the unforgiving glare of global attention. The stage is set for a story that is at once intimate and epic, personal and institutional. It is about a man, a family, and a centuries-old institution confronting the pressures of modern life, media scrutiny, and human emotion. And as we follow this story, we will uncover details, insights, and revelations that few outside the palace walls have seen, each one adding depth, tension, and understanding to the complex narrative of Prince Harry's plea and its unprecedented rejection. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. He begged to come home, but not as a full-time royal. That simple, yet audacious request is at the heart of the drama that has captured global attention. Prince Harry, once second in line to the throne, had left behind the traditional life of royalty, stepping into a world of independence, media ventures, and a personal life crafted far from the scrutiny of Buckingham Palace. And yet, despite the distance, despite the compromises he had already made, Harry wanted to bridge a gap. A chance to reconnect with his family, his heritage, and the institution that shaped his earliest years. What he asked for seems, on the surface, reasonable. The ability to return to the UK on a part-time basis, participating in select royal duties while maintaining the autonomy he fought so hard to secure. But in the world of monarchy, reasonable is rarely simple. Imagine the proposal as Harry presented it. He envisioned a balance between two worlds, a delicate act of diplomacy in which personal desire meets institutional expectation. On paper, it might have looked like a modern solution: attending ceremonial events, participating in family gatherings, fulfilling key duties during high-profile moments, but not being bound by the full-time schedule of a traditional royal. This was, in essence, a bid to maintain connection while honoring independence. Yet, for Buckingham Palace, the very concept of a part-time royal raised alarms. Could someone straddle the line between institution and independence without undermining either? Was there a precedent for such a hybrid arrangement? Or would this proposal destabilize long-held traditions that the monarchy relies upon to function? Harry's request also carried emotional weight. It was not merely about appearances or ceremonial obligations. It was a plea for belonging. By stepping away, he had created distance, both literal and symbolic, from the family he once called home. He had pursued a life that allowed him and Meghan to forge their own path, to escape the relentless gaze of the British media, and to define themselves on their own terms. Yet, human connection is persistent. The desire to participate in family life, to celebrate milestones, and to support those you love cannot be entirely separated from professional or institutional identity. Harry's plea was, in many ways, a manifestation of this human longing, a bridge across the emotional chasm that had grown over years of conflict, scrutiny, and physical separation. And yet, the proposal was complicated. It required careful negotiation, not just with King Charles and Prince William, but with the broader institution, including advisors, courtiers, and palace legal teams. There were practical considerations: security logistics, media management, public perception, and the delicate choreography of appearances and duties. The monarchy thrives on predictability, on structure, on a hierarchy that is rarely questioned. A part-time royal could introduce ambiguity, confusion over protocol, potential contradictions in messaging, and unforeseen consequences for both public perception and internal cohesion. In short, Harry's plea was emotionally grounded, personally significant, but institutionally precarious. To understand why this plea was so significant, consider Harry's history. From his earliest years, he was immersed in the rhythms of royal life. Formal ceremonies, private protocols, media scrutiny, and intense public expectation. These experiences shaped him, but they also imposed constraints. When he chose to step away, he traded titles, duties, and traditional privileges for autonomy, privacy, and a new kind of influence. Returning as a part-time royal would have been a reversal. A blending of old and new identities, a balancing act that few could manage. And yet, Harry's request was not about erasing independence. It was about finding a sustainable way to belong to two worlds simultaneously, to honor family while honoring self. From a public perspective, this plea carries profound intrigue. How many of us have attempted to navigate conflicting demands of personal desire and institutional expectation? How many have sought compromise, only to encounter resistance from a rigid system that values order over individual nuance? Harry's experience magnifies this universal tension to extraordinary scale. Every word, every nuance, every detail is scrutinized, dissected, and broadcast to millions. The stakes are personal, yet they are amplified by global attention. The emotional resonance is powerful. A man seeking connection, a family navigating boundaries, an institution balancing tradition and modernity. And yet, there was more beneath the surface. Sources suggest that Harry's plea was not merely logistical, but deeply relational. It reflected a desire to repair connections strained over years of media scrutiny, disagreements over autonomy, and conflicting visions of duty. He sought access to family events, perhaps hoping to share moments with his children, to create memories with loved ones, and to reaffirm bonds that distance and circumstance had stretched thin. This was, in essence, a request for emotional reconciliation, couched in the language of ceremonial compromise. But the proposal also raised internal questions within the palace. Could a part-time royal fulfill obligations without compromising security, consistency, or precedent? How would other family members react? Could this arrangement satisfy public expectation while protecting institutional credibility? Advisors likely debated each scenario in painstaking detail: contingency plans, media strategy, potential backlash, and long-term implications. Every angle was considered, and yet, the human dimension, Harry's personal longing, remained intangible, difficult to quantify, and impossible to manage entirely through policy or procedure. The stakes were particularly high for King Charles. As monarch, he must balance compassion for his son with the obligations of office. Authority, tradition, and precedent are foundational to his role, and any perception of favoritism or inconsistency could have ripple effects throughout the monarchy and the Commonwealth. For William, Harry's elder brother, the situation is equally complex. Loyalty to family, responsibility toward institutional stability, and the personal pain of estrangement all collide in a way that defies simple resolution. And for Princess Anne and other senior royals, opinions, counsel, and influence contribute to a decision-making process that is as layered as it is consequential. Publicly, Harry's plea was likely seen as a potential olive branch, a signal of willingness to engage without compromising independence. Yet the palace interpreted it differently. Rather than viewing the proposal as compromise, it was likely seen as a disruption, an attempt to redefine roles and challenge established norms. This is a tension inherent in modern monarchy, the clash between tradition and evolution, between human desire and institutional necessity. And this clash would shape every conversation, every decision, and every reaction that followed the announcement. So what exactly did Harry ask for? Reports suggest a framework that was deliberately flexible, designed to accommodate both his independent life in America and ceremonial obligations in the UK. He proposed attending high-profile events, perhaps trooping the color, remembrance ceremonies, and key family milestones, while retaining the freedom to live and work abroad. This approach was unprecedented. While other royals have occasionally taken extended absences, none have attempted to maintain a semi-independent, part-time role while retaining a visible public profile. The request was both bold and delicate, reflecting Harry's unique position as both insider and outsider, royal and independent, family member and global figure. Yet, despite the thoughtfulness of the plea, the palace response was unequivocal. It was not acceptable. Part-time royals, it seems, are not a concept the monarchy is prepared to accommodate. There are practical, symbolic, and strategic reasons for this stance, but from Harry's perspective, it was a blunt, painful denial. The rejection, while rooted in protocol and tradition, carries a deeply personal resonance. It underscores the limitations of negotiation within an institution that values hierarchy, clarity, and consistency above all else. And it raises a question that echoes throughout this story. When tradition meets personal desire, who wins and who must compromise? The emotional stakes, once again, are staggering. Harry's plea was more than a request. It was an attempt at reconciliation, a desire to belong, a hope that independence and family could coexist. Its rejection is not simply a bureaucratic detail. It is a profound human moment, laden with disappointment, longing, and uncertainty. It sets the stage for the unfolding drama, the strategic maneuvers, and the emotional consequences that will reverberate throughout the palace, the media, and the public consciousness. And here is the first cliffhanger of this chapter. While the rejection was clear, what came next? Harry's immediate response, his private conversations with Meghan, and the ripple effects within the palace would transform a single decision into a saga of personal struggle, family conflict, and global intrigue. The plea was denied, but the story was far from over. In fact, this moment may have been just the opening act of a drama that will redefine relationships, reputations, and the very nature of modern royalty. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Step inside Buckingham Palace, and the grandeur is immediate. Gilded halls, ornate ceilings, and a weight of history that presses on every conversation. But behind the beauty lies a world of tension, calculation, and unspoken rules. And 1 minute ago, the palace became the epicenter of a story that would shock the world. The rejection of Prince Harry's plea to return as a part-time royal. What exactly happened behind those doors? How did the decision come to be? And who really influenced the outcome? To understand the full impact, we have to walk through the corridors of power to explore the mechanics of decision-making that are as rigid as they are complex. The process begins, inevitably, with King Charles. As monarch, he bears ultimate responsibility, not only for policy and protocol, but also for the family he loves and the institution he represents. Reports suggest that the king weighed Harry's proposal meticulously, considering not just personal dynamics, but the ripple effects across the monarchy. There is the delicate balance of public perception. Every appearance, statement, and action of a royal carries weight far beyond the palace walls. If a precedent is set by allowing a part-time royal, it could inspire challenges to long-established rules, destabilizing centuries of tradition. And yet, personal feelings cannot be ignored entirely. Charles is a father, aware of his son's emotional struggle, yet bound by the constraints of monarchy. The tension between fatherhood and duty is palpable. Next, advisors play their crucial role. These are the unseen figures, often called courtiers, aides, and palace officials, whose job is to provide context, strategy, and perspective. They study every potential outcome, media response, public sentiment, legal implications, security logistics, and even the psychological impact on the family. Each advisor brings expertise and opinion, but ultimately, the decision rests with the monarch. Discussions in these inner chambers are not casual. They are intense, detailed, and sometimes heated. One misstep, one poorly worded phrase, could ignite controversy and undermine the institution's credibility. Then there is Prince William. His involvement is significant, though often understated in public narratives. William's perspective blends personal and institutional concerns. He understands Harry's struggles intimately, yet he is also deeply committed to preserving the monarchy's stability. Any sign of favoritism, leniency, or inconsistency could compromise that stability. Reports indicate that William's input, while private, was influential, his position as heir and elder brother giving weight to concerns about precedent, responsibility, and the public face of the family. We also cannot overlook Princess Anne. Often described as the most hardworking royal, she commands respect for her discipline, practicality, and loyalty to tradition. Anne's influence, though less visible in media narratives, can be decisive behind the scenes. She is known for speaking candidly, for balancing emotional insight with practicality. Sources suggest that her opinion regarding Harry's plea was a pivotal factor in shaping the tone and firmness of the palace's response. Her message was clear. While family bonds are vital, the monarchy cannot compromise rules or protocols without risking long-term consequences. And then there are the layers of formal protocol that govern every action. Security concerns, legal obligations, and ceremonial duties create a framework within which every decision must fit. Harry's request, by its nature, challenged this framework. Could a royal divide time between private life abroad and ceremonial responsibilities in the UK without creating logistical chaos? Would security protocols, which are already complex, be strained or compromised? Could media management effectively protect privacy while maintaining public confidence? These questions are not trivial. They are operational, practical, and, in the eyes of palace officials, essential. It is here, within this labyrinth of authority, protocol, and counsel, that the final decision crystallized. The rejection was not a snap judgment. It was the result of hours, perhaps days, of deliberation, weighing consequences and risks. The conclusion, while firm, reflects a careful balance between compassion and responsibility. Harry's emotional need was acknowledged, yet the institutional imperative prevailed. For the monarchy, clarity, consistency, and precedent outweigh individual preference, no matter how compelling. But decision-making in the palace is never purely rational. There are undercurrents of emotion, history, and familial relationships that color every conversation. Past conflicts, media scrutiny, and personal grievances inform perspectives, even when unspoken. Advisors may present data and scenarios, but underlying feelings, loyalty, resentment, protectiveness, shape interpretations and recommendations. In this context, rejecting Harry's plea becomes as much about signaling boundaries as it is about maintaining order. Once the decision was finalized, attention turned to communication. How do you deliver news of such magnitude to both the subject and the public in a way that preserves dignity, authority, and public trust? The statement was crafted with precision, brief, firm, and unambiguous. Every word chosen to convey clarity while minimizing controversy. It addressed the public's right to know while maintaining the monarchy's control over narrative. Yet, paradoxically, the very act of public announcement sparked the global conversation the palace likely anticipated but could not fully control. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere would have been electric. Harry, upon learning of the rejection, would have felt the weight of both disappointment and understanding. Meghan, by his side, processing the implications and strategizing next steps. Advisors observing, weighing every reaction, noting every nuance. The king, aware of the emotional impact but steadfast in his responsibility. William and Anne, watching the ripple effects of the decision on both family and institution. Every gesture, word, and pause carries significance in these high-stakes moments. The decision process also highlights the interplay between personal desire and institutional necessity. Harry sought flexibility, a way to belong without losing autonomy. The monarchy required structure, clarity, and adherence to tradition. These two forces, each valid in its own right, collided. And in this collision, the choice was made, not lightly, not without empathy, but firmly, resolutely, and in alignment with the monarchy's enduring principles. For observers, the palace's deliberation provides insight into the mechanics of power, influence, and familial negotiation at the highest level. It is a world where emotion, strategy, and duty intertwine, where every decision carries implications beyond the immediate moment, and where private conversations echo publicly in ways that shape perception and legacy. Understanding this process is essential to grasping the significance of Harry's plea and the magnitude of its rejection. And yet, despite the formalities, the human dimension cannot be ignored. Behind the protocol, the advisors, and the statements, there are feelings: disappointment, longing, frustration, and love. Harry's rejection is not a mere administrative outcome. It is an emotional reality, experienced deeply by a son, a husband, a father. The palace, in its pursuit of clarity and precedent, confronts the messy, unpredictable, and profoundly human elements of family life. The final element of this process, often unseen but critical, is timing. The announcement, made public, not only communicates a decision but also sets the stage for future developments. By controlling the narrative at this moment, the palace asserts authority while shaping perception. Yet timing also creates tension, anticipation, and speculation. How will Harry respond in private? How will Meghan react? What does this mean for upcoming events, appearances, or potential negotiations? Each unanswered question is a spark, igniting curiosity, discussion, and intrigue on a global scale. And now, the cliffhanger that transitions us to the next chapter. The decision has been made, the statement released, and the palace world has reacted, but the story is far from over. How did Harry, Meghan, and those closest to him respond in the immediate aftermath? What private conversations unfolded behind palace doors? And which revelations, yet to be shared, would shock both family and public alike? But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Often overlooked in public narratives, Princess Anne, the Queen's only daughter, has quietly wielded extraordinary influence within the royal family. Her role is subtle, strategic, and grounded in a deep understanding of both tradition and duty. Yet now, in the wake of the palace's shocking rejection of Prince Harry's plea to return as a part-time royal, Anne's presence, and her influence behind the scenes, has never been more significant. To understand the full impact of this decision, we need to examine Anne's perspective, her relationships with both Harry and King Charles, and the ways her counsel may have shaped the outcome. Anne is often described as pragmatic, disciplined, and unflinching in her loyalty to the monarchy. Unlike other royals who are more publicly scrutinized or media-focused, she has cultivated a reputation for getting things done quietly and efficiently. She understands the pressures of royal life and the intricacies of palace politics. Her influence is subtle, yet formidable. She is the type of royal whose opinions carry weight precisely because they are rarely broadcast or sensationalized. And in the case of Harry's plea, Anne's counsel appears to have been pivotal. Her relationship with Harry has always been complex. As an aunt, Anne has observed him closely throughout his life, his triumphs, struggles, and the pressures he faced under the global gaze of royalty. She has seen his rebellious streak, his desire for autonomy, and his relentless pursuit of purpose outside the royal mold. Yet, Anne is also deeply loyal to the institution of the monarchy. She understands the stakes of compromise and precedent and knows that the monarchy's stability relies on clear boundaries. This duality, compassion for Harry coupled with unwavering commitment to the crown, defines her role in the decision-making process. Inside the palace, her voice carries weight precisely because it balances emotion and pragmatism. Sources suggest that she was candid in her assessment of Harry's proposal. While she empathized with his desire to reconnect with the family, she was also acutely aware of the risks associated with a part-time royal arrangement, and reportedly emphasized that the monarchy could not bend rules for individual circumstances without inviting long-term complications. Her perspective likely helped shape the tone of the palace's statement: firm yet not cruel, decisive yet measured, rejecting the plea without publicly vilifying Harry. Anne's influence extends beyond formal counsel. She is deeply involved in the operational and ceremonial aspects of the monarchy, overseeing events, engagements, and protocols that require meticulous planning. This practical experience informs her judgment, She understands the logistical challenges of incorporating a part-time royal into schedules already calibrated with precision. Security concerns, media optics, and the potential for public confusion all are part of her calculus. In her view, allowing Harry to return on a part-time basis would not simply be a matter of scheduling. It would be a disruption to an entire system designed for clarity and continuity. Her perspective also carries historical weight. Princess and is well aware of the precedents set by past royals who defied expectations or attempted to forge independent paths. From Edward VIII's abdication to Princess Margaret's personal struggles, she has witnessed firsthand how individual desires can collide with institutional imperatives. This knowledge, combined with her pragmatic nature, informs her insistence that the monarchy must maintain consistency, even in emotionally charged situations. Harry's plea, while understandable, was seen as a potential catalyst for ambiguity, an outcome and could not support. Yet, Anne's influence is not purely institutional. She is also a family member, with genuine affection for Harry and his children. Her counsel likely reflects a desire to protect him from further public scrutiny and media intrusion. She understands the emotional stakes, the disappointment, the longing for connection, and the personal toll of being caught between family and institution. This human insight adds nuance to her perspective. She is not simply enforcing rules. She is guiding decisions with empathy, ensuring that the family's actions are measured, deliberate, and sensitive to individual circumstances. Her involvement also highlights the complex dynamics within the royal family. While the public narrative often focuses on the relationships between Harry, William, and Charles, Anne's role reminds us that influence is multifaceted. Decisions are rarely unilateral. They emerge from a network of voices, perspectives, and experiences. Anne's pragmatic approach likely served as a counterbalance to other family members' emotional responses, helping to ensure that the rejection of Harry's plea was framed in a way that prioritized clarity, stability, and continuity. Another critical aspect of Anne's influence is her credibility. She is respected both within the palace and in the public eye for her dedication to duty, her unwavering work ethic, and her ability to navigate complex situations without unnecessary drama. This credibility allows her to exert soft power, shaping outcomes without overt confrontation. In the case of Harry's request, it is plausible that her input reassured other decision-makers that a firm response could be delivered without irreparably damaging family relationships. And strategic thinking also extends to long-term implications. A part-time royal arrangement for Harry might have seemed manageable in the short term, but Anne is acutely aware of the potential ripple effects. Future requests from other family members, public confusion over roles and responsibilities, and the erosion of protocol that underpins the monarchy's authority. By advocating for consistency and clear boundaries, she helps protect the institution from precedent that could complicate succession, engagement schedules, and public expectations in the years to come. Her role, however, is not without tension. Anne's empathy for Harry likely creates internal conflict. She must balance familial loyalty with institutional responsibility, personal feelings with public duty. These pressures are compounded by the knowledge that any misstep, or even perceived favoritism, can be amplified in the media, scrutinized by public opinion, and debated endlessly on social platforms. Navigating this landscape requires both wisdom and courage, qualities that Anne has demonstrated throughout her life. Anne's influence also extends subtly into the realm of communication. While she is not the author of official statements, her guidance likely informs tone, phrasing, and emphasis. By providing insight into family dynamics, emotional context, and historical precedent, she helps shape messaging that communicates firmness without cruelty, authority without harshness. The result is a public statement that is precise, measured, and strategically framed, a rejection of Harry's plea delivered with calculated discretion. Yet, despite her strategic acumen, the human element remains central, and understands that decisions like this are deeply personal, affecting relationships, emotions, and individual well-being. Her counsel likely reflects a desire to protect both Harry and the monarchy, balancing compassion with pragmatism. She embodies a rare blend of empathy and strategy, ensuring that decisions are not purely transactional, but informed by an understanding of human complexity. The broader significance of Anne's role is profound. It demonstrates that influence in the monarchy is not solely about visibility or media presence. True power often lies in discretion, judgment, and the ability to navigate complex intersections of duty, emotion, and protocol. Her input in the rejection of Harry's plea underscores this principle. Decisions that appear straightforward in public are often shaped by nuanced perspectives, historical awareness, and strategic foresight. And here lies the first cliffhanger of this chapter. While Princess Anne's counsel helped shape the rejection of Harry's plea, the aftermath, Harry's private response, Meghan's involvement, and the ripple effects throughout the palace would set the stage for revelations and conflicts that no one outside the family could anticipate. Her influence, though subtle, is only one thread in a complex tapestry of decisions, emotions, and strategic maneuvering that will define the next chapter of this saga. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The moment Buckingham Palace released the statement rejecting Prince Harry's plea to return as a part-time royal, the world erupted. Newsrooms, social media platforms, and online forums ignited in a firestorm of commentary, speculation, and debate. Within seconds, hashtags trended, pundits debated the implications, and millions of people shared their opinions, feelings, and shock. This was no ordinary royal announcement. It was a seismic event, a collision of family drama, institutional authority, and global attention that would dominate headlines for weeks to come. To understand the magnitude of the media reaction, consider the speed and scale. Within the first hour, major news outlets in the UK, US, and across Europe were breaking the story. Tweets and posts flooded social media platforms, dissecting every nuance of the announcement. Memes appeared almost instantaneously, blending humor with incredulity. Public sentiment, divided and emotional, ranged from outrage to empathy, admiration to criticism. For Harry and Meghan, this meant their personal lives were once again thrust into a global spotlight, magnified by the immediacy of modern media and the insatiable curiosity of audiences worldwide. The tone of coverage varied dramatically. Traditional media outlets approached the story with a mix of analysis, history, and speculation. Some emphasized the personal and emotional dimensions, portraying Harry as a son seeking reconciliation and a man longing to reconnect with his roots. Others highlighted the institutional and procedural aspects, framing the rejection as a necessary step to maintain tradition, protocol, and the monarchy's credibility. Tabloids leaned heavily into drama, presenting the decision as yet another chapter in a saga of familial tension, betrayal, and royal intrigue. Meanwhile, social media amplified emotion, with viral posts and threads dissecting every statement, gesture, and historical context. Public reaction was equally polarized. Some applauded the palace for its decisiveness, viewing the rejection as a necessary assertion of authority and consistency. For these observers, allowing a part-time royal could have set a dangerous precedent, undermining centuries of protocol and creating confusion about roles, responsibilities, and succession. Others sympathized deeply with Harry, seeing him as a man caught between loyalty and autonomy, yearning to reconnect with his family while maintaining the independence he fought to secure. They criticized the monarchy for rigidity, perceived coldness, and the emotional toll of denying a son's plea for connection. Social media, of course, magnified every nuance. Memes, viral videos, and commentary spread across platforms like wildfire, blending humor, outrage, and speculation. Users debated the fairness of the decision, the underlying motivations, and potential long-term consequences. Every article, tweet, and post was dissected, commented on, and reshared, creating a feedback loop of attention and emotion. In this environment, perception often becomes reality. Public opinion shapes narrative, and the palace must respond not only to facts but to the amplified interpretations of millions. Media coverage also fueled speculation about internal palace dynamics. Who influenced the decision? How did Meghan respond behind the scenes? What role did Princess Anne play in shaping the outcome? Analysts and journalists attempted to connect dots, using previous statements, appearances, and historical patterns to construct possible narratives. The result was a multi-layered story that intertwined fact, speculation, and emotion, a story that drew audiences in precisely because it combined human drama with institutional intrigue. The emotional resonance of the media coverage cannot be understated. Audiences were not merely observing a royal announcement. They were witnessing a human story on a global stage. Harry's plea represented themes that resonate universally: family conflict, the desire for belonging, the tension between personal autonomy and societal expectation. These themes amplified engagement, creating empathy, outrage, and intense curiosity. Every reader, viewer, and social media participant became part of the unfolding narrative, emotionally invested in the outcome. International reaction added further complexity. In the United States, where Harry and Meghan now reside, coverage emphasized the personal struggle and the couple's pursuit of independence. American media often framed the story as a tale of individual agency, freedom, and emotional truth. In the UK, coverage was more nuanced, reflecting a mix of loyalty, tradition, and critique of both Harry and the monarchy. Across Europe, commentary ranged from fascination with the human drama to analytical assessments of monarchy and public perception. Globally, the announcement became a lens through which millions examined questions of duty, identity, and the balance between personal desire and institutional obligation. The media frenzy also highlighted contradictions and tension points. While Harry sought flexibility and compromise, the palace prioritized structure and precedent. Headlines and opinion pieces debated whether the monarchy's rigidity was justified or whether it represented emotional neglect. Social media users amplified these tensions, sharing emotional responses, personal reflections, and critiques that range from sympathetic to scathing. The speed and intensity of this coverage ensured that the story would not fade quietly, but would continue to dominate public discourse for weeks, months, or even longer. Another significant dimension was the framing of Harry and Meghan's response. While the palace issued a formal, measured statement, media outlets speculated on private conversations, emotional reactions, and behind-the-scenes maneuvers. The public narrative painted a vivid picture of personal struggle, highlighting the human cost of institutional decisions. This coverage created empathy for Harry and Meghan, positioning them as figures navigating complex personal and professional landscapes under the glare of relentless attention. The media frenzy also reinforced the global fascination with monarchy as a concept. Audiences are drawn not just to celebrity, but to the interplay between personal drama and institutional legacy. The story of Harry's plea and its rejection illuminates larger questions. How do royal families balance tradition with modernity? How do they manage personal desires alongside public expectations? And how do individual actions ripple across centuries of precedent and public perception? These questions added depth to coverage, sustaining interest and engagement beyond mere sensationalism. Critically, the public reaction created feedback loops that influenced the palace's strategic considerations. Every wave of social media commentary, every editorial, every viral post becomes part of the information ecosystem that decision-makers must navigate. Public perception can shape internal discussions, affect engagement planning, and influence long-term strategy. In this sense, media coverage is not merely reflective. It is active, dynamic, and potentially transformative, shaping both narrative and outcome. Finally, the media frenzy reinforced a central truth of this saga: the story is far from over. Coverage, speculation, and public engagement amplify stakes, creating an environment in which every decision, statement, and appearance becomes consequential. The rejection of Harry's plea is not a single moment in isolation. It is the catalyst for ongoing drama, emotion, and strategic maneuvering. And in this context, the audience becomes a participant, emotionally and cognitively engaged, awaiting the next revelation, twist, or response. And now, the cliffhanger that propels us into the next chapter. The media storm has begun, public opinion is inflamed, and the palace has delivered its message. But behind closed doors, the real reactions of Harry, Meghan, and the senior royals are just beginning to unfold. The drama is far from over, and the next moves will be more surprising, revealing, and consequential than anyone could anticipate. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Behind the headlines, the social media storm, and the official statements, there is a private world few outsiders ever see. A world where emotions, strategy, and family intersect in ways that are intensely personal. Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, has long been a central figure in the narrative surrounding Prince Harry, and her perspective on the rejection of his plea to return as a part-time royal is both complex and revealing. To fully understand the unfolding drama, we must explore not only her public persona but the private, behind-the-scenes response that has influenced every subsequent decision and conversation. Imagine the moment Meghan learned of the palace's decision. Perhaps she was with Harry in their California home, processing the news together, weighing the emotional and practical implications. For Meghan, who has navigated intense media scrutiny, public judgment, and a highly controlled institutional environment, this was a confirmation of both familiar frustrations and ongoing challenges. The rejection was not merely about protocol. It was about a boundary, a refusal to accommodate compromise, and a reminder of the constraints imposed by an institution that she and Harry had long questioned. Meghan's response, while private, likely combined a mixture of empathy, protectiveness, and strategic thinking. She understands Harry's vulnerabilities, his emotional connection to his family, and his desire to reconcile personal identity with royal tradition. At the same time, she is acutely aware of the risks inherent in re-engaging with an institution that had previously subjected them to intense public scrutiny. Her perspective is both personal and tactical. Protect the family unit, manage public perception, and preserve autonomy while considering the emotional stakes for Harry, herself, and their children. From Meghan's viewpoint, the plea was more than a request. It was a delicate act of diplomacy, a chance to bridge worlds without compromising independence. She would have considered how the palace might respond, the potential media fallout, and the long-term impact on their lives. The rejection, therefore, was not only a disappointment, but a validation of concerns she had long held, that the monarchy prioritizes tradition and optics over individual agency and emotional nuance. It was a moment that reinforced her awareness of the complex interplay between power, protocol, and personal desire. Her private response also likely involved strategic consideration for the couple's future. Meghan has consistently emphasized agency, autonomy, and influence beyond the confines of royal tradition. She understands that any engagement with the palace carries both opportunity and risk. In the wake of the rejection, her priority would have been to support Harry emotionally, while simultaneously assessing the practical implications for their family, public image, and ongoing projects. This dual focus, emotional care and strategic calculation, is central to her role in this saga. Meghan's empathy for Harry is paired with a deep understanding of media dynamics. She has experienced firsthand how public narratives are shaped, distorted, and amplified. The rejection of the plea was not just a personal setback. It was a story that would dominate headlines, social media, and public opinion. Meghan's insight into narrative management likely informed immediate responses, guiding Harry on how to approach conversations, maintain privacy, and prepare for the public reaction. Her media savvy ensures that while the palace controls the official message, the couple can still navigate public perception with awareness and intentionality. Emotionally, Meghan's response was probably layered with both validation and frustration. On one hand, the decision underscores the challenges of navigating royal expectations, highlighting the limits of compromise within an institution steeped in tradition. On the other hand, it validates her long-standing concerns about autonomy, independence, and the constraints placed on individuals within the royal framework. This dual emotional reality, simultaneously empathetic, protective, and strategic, defines her approach to the situation and frames her influence on Harry's next steps. Her private response also reveals the personal stakes for their family. Meghan and Harry have children, and any decision regarding a return to the UK would have profound implications for them. Emotional stability, public exposure, schooling, and familial relationships all factor into her considerations. The rejection not only affects Harry's personal desires, but also reverberates through the family unit, influencing decisions about where to live, how to engage with extended family, and what level of participation in royal life is feasible or desirable. Meghan's perspective is informed by the responsibility to safeguard the family's well-being while navigating an intensely public environment. In addition to personal and family concerns, Meghan's response is shaped by historical context. She has observed patterns of royal behavior, media treatment, and institutional rigidity. This awareness likely informs her counsel to Harry, highlighting risks, potential outcomes, and strategic pathways. Her input is both protective and proactive, guiding decisions that balance emotional realities with practical necessities. This perspective underscores her integral role in shaping the couple's approach to palace dynamics, public communication, and long-term strategy. Meghan's perspective also reflects a broader understanding of gender, race, and media bias. She is acutely aware of how her identity has influenced coverage, perception, and institutional treatment. This awareness shapes her private response, influencing how she navigates discussions with Harry, senior royals, and advisors. It also informs strategies for public messaging, advocacy work, and the management of personal and professional boundaries. Her insight into these dynamics adds depth and nuance to the story, illustrating the complex intersection of personal experience and institutional expectation. Another critical dimension of her response involves resilience and long-term vision. Meghan is known for her strategic thinking, ability to anticipate challenges, and focus on outcomes beyond immediate setbacks. The rejection of Harry's plea, while disappointing, is a single moment within a broader narrative that includes public influence, philanthropic endeavors, and ongoing engagement with global audiences. Her perspective emphasizes the importance of maintaining focus, preparing for future opportunities, and navigating challenges with composure and intentionality. Meghan's role also highlights the emotional labor inherent in the situation. Supporting Harry while managing public perception, institutional dynamics, and family considerations requires constant negotiation, empathy, and foresight. Her private response is not simply reactive. It is proactive, deliberate, and guided by a deep understanding of human behavior, media strategy, and institutional pressures. She serves as both emotional anchor and strategic partner, shaping decisions and responses that will reverberate through the palace and the public sphere. Finally, Meghan's perspective underscores a central theme in this saga: the tension between personal desire and institutional expectation.